Oh, crazy hair, don't care. Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Heather and as always I'm reading with a vengeance and I hope you are too. Always grateful for you OGs who keep coming back, and if you're new to my channel, very warm welcome to you. I hope everybody is doing well. I hope everybody's reading is going well. Is everybody ready for the big reading season? Summer is coming up, at least those of you in the Northern Hemisphere. And of course, June is kind of the first solid month of summertime, and I am here to talk to you about some new releases that are going to be coming out in June. Now, as of with any other month, there are lots of new books coming out in June, but I like to narrow these videos down to the ones that I am super excited about. And I hope that you are super excited about too. Now, there are some books that are coming out in June that are by some very popular authors, and I'll just mention them here. Ruth Ware is coming out with a new book. It's called 0 Days. I'm not sure if I'm going to read it. I recently broke up with Ruth Ware. I have given it a go several times, and ever since the first one, which was my favorite that I read, In a Dark, Dark Wood, she has yet to meet that particular standard, at least for me personally. So the only book that I haven't read by her, I believe, well, there's a couple. I haven't read The Lying Game, although I don't think I've unhauled it. I still have it, so maybe it's a temporary breakup. I don't know. And I haven't read The It Girl, so I'm not sure if we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So 0 Days is coming out in June. Riley Sager also has a new book coming out, also a very popular author. He's coming out with The Only One Left, which I'm sure everybody will be talking about any minute now. And finally, one of my personal favorite authors, S.A. Cosby, is coming out with a new one called All the Sinners Bleed. Now, that would have been included on this particular list that I'm going to talk about had I not already read it. I actually got my hands on an ARC, and so I've already read it. And while I'm still excited that it's coming out, I'm more excited for you guys that it's coming out, but I'll be talking about that book in my next wrap up. But I definitely wanted to let you guys know that that is coming out in June, so be on the lookout for that one. If you've watched these videos before, you know that I've mentioned in the past that when I started this series, I wanted to keep it at five books that I'm most excited about are coming up. As I've progressed with this series, that number has inched up, and so I'm just going to put it out right now that there's not going to be any set number of books that I'm going to talk about in these videos that I do for new releases that I'm excited about. If it's a book that's coming out, it's a new release and I'm excited about it, I'm going to talk about it here. So just going to put that out there. I'm not even going to count how many books I have to talk about today. I just will say that it's more than 5. But let's get started. Let's talk about the first one. I will talk about them in the order that they are going to come out. The first book I'm going to talk about is The Paris Daughter by Kristin Harmel. I have not read this author, but she is the author of The Forest of Vanishing Stars, which I think was a pretty popular one. This is a historical fiction that takes place around the World War II era. This one starts in Paris in 1939, right before the beginning of the Nazi occupation of France. This follows mostly Elsie, but it follows in the beginning Elsie becoming friends with Juliet, who is the owner or runner of a very small bookshop, which of course that pricked my ears a little bit. They become really, really good friends. And even though they know that there is something dark on the horizon, they're really, really enjoying each other's company and getting to know each other. And they have no idea how much the war is going to irrevocably change their lives. But then when it seems that Elise is becoming a target of the Nazis, she knows that she has to flee because she's no longer safe in Paris. And she decides to leave her young daughter with Juliet, who also has a daughter of her own. She believes that the best thing is to leave her daughter with her best friend, and hopefully they will be safe while Elise flees France. When the war is over, Elise returns to Paris to try to find her daughter again, and she finds that the bookshop is nothing but rubble. It's been bombed, and Juliet has disappeared along with the 2 little girls without a trace. And so the story follows Elise looking for Juliet, looking for her daughter, and this takes her to New York, where she ends up finding answers. This one has serious Nightingale vibes, and I'm totally here for it. Nightingale was one of my favorite historical fiction World War II novels. And this one with a bookshop in it and 2 friends and a mystery. This one just sounds right up my street. The Paris Daughter comes out June 6th. And speaking of bookstores, I have another one that features a bookstore, and that is The Bookshop by the Bay by Pamela Kelley. I'm not really familiar with this author. I haven't read her before. She's got some other books. This one is a romance, women's fiction, chick lit, whatever you want to call it. It's normally not something I gravitate towards, but when I read the synopsis, it intrigued me, to be fair. And with summer coming up, this just seems like one of those types of books you just want to read by the pool, under an umbrella, on the beach, you know, that type of book. So this one follows Jess and her best friend Allison. Jess is 50-ish. She's a high-profile lawyer in the city of Charleston, but then when she finds out that her husband's been cheating on her, she decides to take a step back and go to, I believe, her hometown, where she wants to relax with the company of her best friend, with some good food, some wine, and she brings her 30-year-old daughter, Caitlin. And Caitlin is at a point in her life where she's struggling to find out what she wants to do with her life. So Jess and Caitlin go to, I believe it's Cape Cod. She decides to spend the summer with her best friend, Allison. Allison is an editor at the local magazine, and the magazine's not doing well. And so Allison also decides to take a step back from her career, and she decides to kind of spend the summer figuring out what she wants to do next while hanging out with Jess. One day, Allison goes by her local bookshop. Now, tell me if this doesn't sound like something that hasn't passed through your mind as a book lover. She goes to her local bookstore and finds out that the owner wants to sell. Allison and Jess kind of come up with an idea of, wouldn't it be great to run the local bookstore? And the story goes from there. So this book is about friendship. This is about mother-daughter relationships. This is about figuring out what you want to do with your life. This is about fulfilling dreams. And I think it's going to be the perfect beachy summer read, but I also think it's going to be kind of heartwarming and a story that we as book lovers will all kind of live vicariously through Jess and Allison. It just sounds like so much fun. Bookshop by the Bay comes out June 6th. All right, this next one's going to sound a little bit more like, okay, Heather, that sounds like the book that you gravitate towards. This next one is called My Murder by Katie Williams. I'm not familiar with this author. I haven't read any of her other stuff, but this one sounds like so much fun. This is a mystery thriller. I was intrigued by the tagline on it, and that is, what if the murder you have to solve is your own? So while most of this is a mystery thriller, there is just a smidgen of sci-fi speculative fiction, which I don't mind. I actually like a little bit of sci-fi. Sometimes I think that can add a really fun aspect to a story so that you as the reader don't have to suspend your belief because it's actually real in the book. Does that make sense? So this one follows Lou. She's happily married. She's the mother of a 2-year-old. She's just living her life, but she also finds herself victim to a serial killer. But because of a government project, she is brought back to life and sent back to her fresh from grieving family. While Lou is super grateful for this second chance, she is now struggling to relearn her old routines and adapting to her old life. But at the same time, she's also bonding with other female victims of this serial killer who have also got a second chance through this weird government project. The more and more she bonds with these other victims, she's developing questions as to what was going on before she was a victim to begin with. And she's now starting to question the people that she trusts and whether or not she should trust them. This one for me reminds me of Blake Crouch's Dark Matter. I think it's going to be really pacey. I think there's going to be unexpected twists and turns. And I think it's just going to be a lot of fun to read. My Murder comes out June 6th. This next book I want to talk to you about is Night Will Find You by Julia Heaberlin, I believe. This one is also a mystery thriller, but this one has kind of a smattering of a paranormal quality to it, which I'm also very intrigued by. This one follows Vivi. Now, Vivi is a scientist, but she also has kind of a special gift. When Vivi was 10 years old, a crazy prediction ended up saving a boy's life. Vivi ends up growing up. She battles between her scientific mind and then having these voices in her head that kind of go against her scientific mind. And in present day, she's an astrophysicist, and all she wants to do is be left alone with her love of the stars. Meanwhile, the boy whose life she saved, he's grown up and he is a Fort Worth cop, and he's always believed that Vivi is psychic. And he goes to her for help because he has been tasked with finding a missing girl, and it's a high-profile case. While a body has never been found, the little girl's mother is sitting in prison, even though she has always proclaimed her innocence. Vivi is initially reluctant because she's never said the word psychic out loud. She doesn't like that idea, but she can't help but want to help with this investigation. Then you also have this super popular podcaster who goes by the name Bubba Guns, who's always talking about conspiracy theories. And anyways, he finds out that Vivi is helping with this investigation, and he starts going on and on about Vivi's past and her weird predictions saving this little boy's life when she was a little girl, and stuff starts to spin out of control, and Vivi decides to fight back. So this sounds like a super fun psychological thriller. I think it's going to be a great summer read. I think there's going to be some twists and turns, and I'm super excited about this one. The Night Will Find You comes out June 8th. The next book I want to talk to you about is You Were Always Mine by Kristin Pride and Joe Piazza. I'm not familiar with these authors, and I don't think I have read a book by multiple authors. I know there's a couple of popular ones out there, and I think that's a really interesting concept. But anyways, I'll share with you the synopsis, and then I'll tell you what grabbed me about it. This is marketed as contemporary literary fiction. This book follows Cinnamon, who is a young Black woman who comes from a troubled past, but she is now living the life that she never thought was possible, but she always dreamed of. She's got a good man, she's got a good career, she's got a lovely home in a beautiful beach town. She is for the most part happy, but she is struck one day by that niggling thought in the back of her mind of, is this all there is? Meanwhile, you're also following Daisy, who is a 19-year-old who also comes from a troubled childhood. But Daisy's got big dreams. Unfortunately, those dreams are thwarted in Daisy's mind when she becomes pregnant. Daisy hides this fact from everybody in her life, and then I'm not sure where in the timeline this happens, but Cinnamon also has something to hide when she finds an abandoned white baby. And she takes this little blonde-haired, blue-eyed thing home, and we follow these two women who are unlikely friends, and they are both having these separate struggles. We see an obvious connection there, but I'm not sure if the connection ends up being what we think it is. But Cinnamon is dealing with all the judgments in the people in her life because she's got this little white baby at home, and she's really, really shocked by some of the things that I think that her family and friends are expressing in her desire to care for this child. And then at the same time, Daisy is dealing with some devastating choices that she feels that she has to make. And I think this is going to just be a really riveting read about race and class and motherhood and who should be a mother, and if motherhood, is it a right? Is it an obligation? Is it a privilege? Who has a right to mother who? I think all these questions are going to be asked in this book, and I am intrigued. Now, it's not so much the motherhood factor of this story that intrigued me. It's mostly the race and class themes that intrigued me, because this book really, really piqued my interest because it really reminds me of one of my favorite Jodi Picoult books, and that's Small Great Things. If you're not familiar with it, please look it up. It is such a great read, and it's such a great exploration of the same themes that are being explored in this book. But yes, this book I am super intrigued by, and of course I wanted to share it with you. You Were Always Mine comes out June 13th. Yes, how long has it been and I'm still talking about books? Yes. Next up is Nightbloom by Adzo Medie. Medie is a Ghanaian writer, and I'm not really familiar with her, although I think she had a book in Reese Witherspoon's book club, His Only Wife, I believe. But this book also takes place in Ghana. It follows Selassie and Akorfa, and not only are they cousins, but they are the best of friends. They grew up very, very close. They share everything together, even though they're very different in personality. Selassie is exuberant and funny and outgoing, while Akorfa is shy and quiet and studious. But their differences complement each other, and they just would do anything for each other. But then one day, Selassie begins to change. She becomes hostile, she shuts down, her grades are suffering, and nobody quite knows what's going on. Not even Akorfa, because Selassie has shut her out. But then Akorfa gets an opportunity to go to university in the United States, and she goes with the dreams of becoming a doctor, and she has dreams of having a bigger, richer, fuller life. But when Akorfa gets there, she is surprised by how much race becomes an everyday factor and struggle in her life. So while Akorfa is in America fulfilling her dream to become a doctor and also struggling with the obstacles that racism put in her way, a crisis happens back home in Ghana, and it brings Selassie and Akorfa back together, and secrets are revealed. Specifically, the secret of why Selassie went through that change. Akorfa realizes her hand in what happened with Selassie. Again, here's another story about race and class, and of course, I don't think I have read a story that takes place in Ghana or with Ghana culture, and I'm super intrigued by that. We also explore the idea of memory and how it's not always what we think it is, but at its core, and what is most intriguing to me, is this is a story about female friendship and the bonds that hold us together, and sometimes how those bonds can be ripped apart in the most tragic ways, and sometimes it takes even more tragedy to mend those bonds. And I am super excited about this one. Nightbloom comes out June 13th. Okay, we have a light at the end of the tunnel. I have 2 more books to talk about. How many have I talked about so far? 18, 19? I don't know. Okay, this next one is a little bit different. This is a nonfiction one, but the thing that popped up about it that had me intrigued is it is written by Ken Jennings, who is a record-breaking champion from Jeopardy! And he's also the host of Jeopardy! Now. My husband and I watch Jeopardy! Every night. We absolutely love it. When I saw that he wrote this book, I was super intrigued, and also intrigued by the title. It is called, I don't want to get it wrong here, it's called 100 Places to See After You Die, a travel guide to the afterlife. And I know I just won't get the synopsis right if I just try to paraphrase it for you, so I'm just going to read it for you with the help of my eyeballs. Ever wonder which circles of Dante's Inferno have the nicest accommodations? Well, every day, of course. Where's the best place to grab a bite to eat in the ancient Egyptian underworld? How does one dress like a local in the heavenly palace of Hinduism's Lord Vishnu, or avoid the flesh-eating river serpents in the Klingon afterlife? What hidden treasures can be found off the beaten path in Hades, Valhalla, or NBC's The Good Place? Find answers to all those questions and more about the world or worlds to come in this eternally entertaining book from Ken Jennings. 100 Places to See After You Die is written in the style of iconic best-selling travel guides, but instead of recommending must-see destinations in Mexico, Thailand, or Rome, Jennings outlines journeys through the afterlife as dreamed up over 5,000 years of human history by our greatest prophets, poets, mystics, artists, and TV showrunners. This comprehensive index of 100 different afterlife destinations was meticulously researched from sources ranging from the Epic of Gilgamesh to modern-day pop songs, video games, and Simpsons episodes. Get ready for whatever post-mortal destiny awaits you, whether it's an astral plane, a Hieronymus Bosch hellscape, or the baseball diamond from Field of Dreams. So I think it's going to be a mixture of like pop culture, history, travel writing, and I am super intrigued. I think it'll be fun. I love Ken Jennings. He's very entertaining and obviously super, super smart. He's a super funny, witty guy. I love that he hosts Jeopardy! He just makes it so much more entertaining, and I just think this is going to be super fun. 100 Places to See After You Die comes out June 13th. Last but not least, the book I'm excited to talk to you about is Where Echoes Die by Courtney Gould. So this one is marketed as young adult, but it also has mystery thriller elements and horror elements. And while you had me at mystery thriller horror, it also deals with relationship between mothers and daughters, and that always intrigues me. This one follows Beck, and Beck is still reeling from the death of her mother. And one day Beck receives a letter in her mother's handwriting, and it's a note that says, "Come find me." The note somehow points to a town called Back Ravel, Arizona, and Beck grabs her sister Riley, and they go immediately to Back Ravel, Arizona to find answers. Beck and Riley's mom was an investigative reporter, and I think that's going to play into this story. And then the town itself of Back Ravel doesn't seem right when Beck and Riley get there. There are no cars, there are no churches, no cemeteries, Everybody they talk to can't seem to remember how long they've been there. The only people who seem to know more than they're letting on is this enigmatic guy who I think is the self-imposed leader of the town, and his daughter Avery. So as Beck and Riley are falling deeper and deeper into the mystery of what happened to their mom, they're drawn closer to each other, and they start to learn things about each other that they didn't know before. And there are family secrets. And the more Beck learns about her family, the more she wants things to be the way they used to be when her mom was alive. And when this starts to happen to her, she starts to get sucked into the mystery of back ravel, and she kind of starts to lose herself. And I think what's going to happen, it's going to take this new bond that she has with her sister Riley to pull her out of that. And I think the story's going to go from there. And I am super intrigued by it. I think it's going to be a very unique story. The uniqueness of it is what drew me to this book. This book kind of has Catriona Ward vibes to it. I'm not sure if that'll be a good thing or a bad thing. Where Echoes Die comes out June 20th. So that is it, finally. Those are all the 86 books that I'm super excited to be coming out in June. What books are you guys excited about? I would love to know, or you could just say hi down in the doodly-doo. If you're still watching at this point, please consider giving that like button a boop, and a subscribe would be wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.